I never thought I'd be the type to find myself in a situation like this, but here I am. My name is Jake, and I'm just an average guy in my mid-30s working a 9-to-5 job at a tech firm. I thought I had a decent life, a loving wife, Sarah, who I married 4 years ago, a modest home in the suburbs, and a couple of cats we jokingly named after our favorite TV characters. On the surface, everything seemed perfectly normal, maybe even a little boring. But isn't that what life is? A series of mundane routines mixed with occasional bursts of excitement. Recently, however, things started to feel off. At first, it was subtle. Sarah began staying late at work more often. She'd come home exhausted, but when I asked about her day, her responses felt rehearsed. She'd speak in vague terms about deadlines and projects, but when I pressed further, she'd shoot me that smile that felt more like a shield than a genuine expression. I wanted to trust her. I didn't want to suspect anything. But the little things started piling up. Her phone was always glued to her hand. She had a new perfume I did recognize, and her late-night texts were done under the guise of work. It all came crashing down one Friday evening. I'd just gotten home early, feeling optimistic about the weekend. I poured myself a drink and decided to surprise her with dinner. I slipped into the kitchen, humming an old tune, when I noticed her phone on the counter. It was lit up, and I could see a message notification from someone named Mike. I told myself it was probably just a coworker. After all, Sarah had mentioned a Mike from her office before. But curiosity got the better of me. I picked up her phone, and as I swiped to unlock it, I felt a knot in my stomach. Sure enough, the messages were flirty, too flirty for my comfort. They were talking about meeting up, how much they missed each other, and how they couldn't wait to be alone together. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My hands trembled as I read through the texts, trying to grasp the reality of what I was seeing. My wife was having an affair. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to make sense of it all. Instead, I just stood there feeling the weight of betrayal crash down on me. When Sarah walked in, her expression shifted from surprise to confusion. "What are you doing with my phone?" she asked, a hint of defensiveness creeping into her tone. I didn't waste any time. "Who is Mike?" The words came out more forcefully than I intended, but I was done with the games. She blinked at me, that same empty look I had seen before, and for a moment I thought she would deny it. Instead, she let out an exaggerated sigh, like I was the one being unreasonable. "Jake, it's not what you think," she said, her voice dripping with annoyance. "We're just friends. You know how it is at work. Sometimes you just connect with people. Friends." I felt my anger bubbling to the surface. "Friends don't talk like this. This isn't just flirting, this is an affair." I couldn't hide the shakiness in my voice. She rolled her eyes, her posture shifting into that familiar defensive stance. "I can't believe you're accusing me of cheating. You're being ridiculous. Maybe if you paid more attention to me, I wouldn't need to look for someone else." The audacity of her words stunned me. I accused her, and she just stared at me, not angry, not sad, just empty. That scared me the most. It was as if I was no longer talking to my wife, but to a stranger who didn't care about the trust we once had. In that moment, I felt lost. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, was slipping away, and I was left to grapple with the reality of our crumbling marriage. As the silence stretched between us, I realized I had to decide how to confront this betrayal. Would I fight for our marriage, or would I let her go? And what would that even mean for me? Part of me wanted to run away to escape the pain, but I also felt this surge of determination. I wanted answers, and more than that, I wanted closure. I needed to find a way to take control of my life again. After that confrontation, everything felt different. The house was filled with a thick tension, and it no longer felt like home. Each room echoed with memories of laughter and love, but now it seemed like a hollow shell of what we once had. I spent the rest of the evening packing the living room, my mind racing with thoughts. I kept replaying our conversation, her dismissive attitude gnawing at me. How could she be so nonchalant about something so devastating? I didn't sleep much that night, tossing and turning in bed. I wondered if she was already texting Mike again, or if she was lying next to me, pretending nothing was wrong. The thought made me feel physically ill, and eventually I got up and went to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of whiskey, hoping it would drown out the noise in my mind. The next day, I decided to gather more information. I needed to know the truth. I couldn't confront Sarah without solid evidence, not when she was so adept at deflecting blame. So I began to dig. I started with her social media accounts, something I had always respected her privacy about. After some digging, I found her Instagram messages. The flirty exchanges with Mike were still there, and they were more explicit than I had imagined. "Can't wait to feel you again." One message read, "Last night was amazing." I felt the bile rise in my throat, realizing the betrayal was deeper than I anticipated. I quickly logged off, overwhelmed by the flood of emotions. I had trusted her, and she had shattered that trust in the most cruel way. As the days passed, I became consumed by the desire for revenge. My mind was a whirlwind of anger and hurt, and I knew I couldn't just sit idle while she continued this charade. I decided to use the information I had gathered to confront her again, but this time I wouldn't let her manipulate the narrative. I would catch her off guard. On a Friday evening, I arranged to meet with a close friend, Tom. He was one of the few people I could confide in without fear of judgment. Over beers, I explained everything, the betrayal, the deceit, and my plans for confronting Sarah again. Tom listened intently, his expression shifting from concern to frustration. "You can't let her get away with this, Jake. You need to show her that actions have consequences," he advised. I nodded, feeling a spark of resolve. "I need to make her understand that she can't just walk all over me." I didn't want to be the victim anymore. I wanted to take control. We brainstormed ideas for how I could execute my revenge. Should I confront her publicly, expose her to everyone she knew? I realized that while that would certainly sting, it wouldn't bring me any real satisfaction. What I needed was for her to feel the same emptiness I felt. And then it hit me. What if I made her think I had moved on? What if I started dating someone else, someone who could be my distraction while I navigated this mess? That night, I went home, feeling a mix of dread and exhilaration. I walked into the house and Sarah was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She barely acknowledged me, her attention focused on her screen. I felt a rush of adrenaline as I thought about my plan. If I could pull off the act well enough, she might just realize what she was losing. "Hey, I'm going out tonight," I announced, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up, surprised. "Where are you going?" "Just hanging out with some friends," I replied, keeping it vague. I could see the flicker of concern in her eyes, but it quickly vanished as she waved me off. "Fine, do whatever you want," she muttered, returning to her phone. As I left, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I was finally doing something for myself, taking charge of my life instead of being stuck in this toxic limbo of emotions. The thought of Sarah realizing she was losing me fueled my determination. I spent the next few weeks putting my plan into action. I started going out more, meeting new people, and even set up a few dating apps. It felt exhilarating to get attention from others, something I hadn't felt in a long time. I wasn't looking for anything serious, but I wanted Sarah to feel the sting of jealousy, to understand that she was playing a dangerous game. Each time I went out, I made sure to drop hints about my new interest in casual conversations. I knew she was watching me closely, and I could see the flicker of jealousy in her eyes each time I mentioned going out with my new friend. But with each passing day, I also felt a twinge of guilt. It wasn't that I wanted to hurt her, but rather that I wanted her to understand the gravity of her actions. I wanted to shake her out of her complacency, to make her realize that our marriage was worth fighting for, if only she would show me she cared. And so, the game continued. I was playing with fire, but that was the only way I felt I could regain my sense of power. Little did I know, the flames of this revenge might burn deeper than I anticipated. As the weeks wore on, I found myself in a strange routine. The thrill of my newfound independence was exhilarating. I spent more time with friends and, admittedly, flirts and dates, all the while keeping my evenings open for my new interest that I spun in conversations with Sarah. I could feel her watching, observing my every move, her demeanor shifting between anger, disbelief, and jealousy. It was intoxicating to see her squirm, but it also stirred up an unexpected feeling within me, doubt. One evening, as I returned home after another night out, I found Sarah sprawled across the couch, a familiar scene that had become a regular occurrence. She was sipping a glass of wine, scrolling through her phone, the silence thick between us. There was an unspoken tension, and for a moment I hesitated. I had spent so much time plotting my revenge that I hadn't fully considered what I was doing to both of us. "Hey," she said, her voice casual, but there was an underlying edge to it. "How was your night?" I shrugged, trying to keep my tone light. "It was fun. Met up with some friends, talked about our plans for the weekend." I let that hang in the air, intentionally vague. She glanced up at me, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Did you meet anyone interesting?" she asked, her smile a little too tight to be sincere. "Just some new people. You know how it is," I replied, matching her tone with a casualness I was far from feeling. But inside I could sense her probing, her desire to know more, to dig into the details of what I was claiming. That night, as I lay in bed, I found myself wrestling with my thoughts. Was this what I wanted? I had hoped that my actions would provoke a reaction in her, a realization of the love we had, a desire to rekindle our relationship. Yet with every moment that passed, I felt the weight of my plan pressing down on me. Was I becoming the person I despised? Was I no better than her? The following night, I had plans to meet an attractive woman named Emily. We'd been chatting online, and there was an undeniable chemistry. But as I prepared for the date, a pang of guilt struck me. Was I really moving on, or was I just using Emily as a tool for revenge? I paused, staring at my reflection in the mirror. The man looking back at me didn't feel like the person I used to be. Still, I pushed those thoughts aside, convincing myself that I needed to see this through. I met Emily at a local bar, and as we chatted and laughed, I felt a flicker of a connection, a reminder of what it felt like to enjoy someone's company without the weight of betrayal hanging over me. But even while I smiled and engaged, my mind occasionally wandered back to Sarah and the choices I had made. "Are you okay?" Emily asked, her voice cutting through my thoughts. "You seem a little distracted." "Yeah, just life stuff," I replied, forcing a smile. I didn't want to unload my baggage on her. I was supposed to be having fun, not wallowing in my misery. As the night wore on, I found myself reaching for my phone, quickly scrolling through my messages. I had a few texts from Sarah, each one growing more frantic. "Where are you? Are you coming home? I need to talk." That last text stopped me cold. I felt a knot form in my stomach. It was a reminder that regardless of how far I drifted from our relationship, I still cared. I had wanted her to feel the fear of losing me, but now I was standing on the precipice of regret. I decided to cut the date short and headed home. I arrived to find Sarah waiting for me, her eyes red-rimmed and puffy as if she had been crying. "Jake," she started, her voice trembling. "We need to talk." I felt my heart race, a mix of anxiety and anticipation. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the confrontation that would reveal her feelings, her regrets, and hopefully her desire to make things right. "Yeah, we do," I replied, my voice steady. "About Mike." She flinched at the mention of his name, and for a moment I thought I saw a flicker of genuine remorse cross her face. "I know I messed up, but I didn't think you would react like this," she said, her voice a mix of anger and despair. "I thought you'd understand." "Understand what?" I challenged, trying to keep my emotions in check. "How you betrayed my trust. How you were ready to throw away our marriage for some fling." "I didn't mean for it to happen that way. It just did," she exclaimed, her voice rising. "You were so focused on work and your own life that I felt neglected. I was lonely, Jake." "Lonely?" I echoed, disbelief flooding my system. "So your solution was to sleep with someone else? That's your answer?" "I didn't sleep with him," she insisted, desperation evident in her tone. "I swear." "We kissed and it went too far, but I ended it. I swear, Jake." The anger I felt was undeniable, but beneath it all, a part of me wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that maybe she was capable of realizing her mistake, that we could salvage this relationship. But then I recalled the messages, the explicit language, and the promises she made to someone else. "I can't keep living like this," I said, my voice breaking slightly. "I don't know if I can trust you again, Sarah. You need to understand the magnitude of what you did." We stood in silence for a moment, the weight of our words hanging in the air. I could see the conflict in her eyes, the fear of losing me mixed with the guilt of her actions. But I wasn't ready to forgive, not yet. I needed to take a step back to assess the damage and figure out what I wanted moving forward. Maybe we need some time apart, I finally said, more to myself than to her. It felt like a stab to the heart, but I knew it was necessary. I needed clarity, and more importantly, I wanted her to feel the consequences of her actions. As I turned to leave the room, I could barely hear her voice behind me, pleading, "Jake, please don't do this." But it was too late. I had decided to take the first step in reclaiming my life, no matter how painful that meant it would be for both of us. The days that followed our confrontation felt like an eternity. I moved into the spare bedroom, which had always been a sort of storage space for old furniture and boxes. It barely resembled the comfortable sanctuary I once shared with Sarah, but it was a small reprieve from the emotional chaos that had become our lives. I was living in a state of limbo, trying to process everything that had happened while grappling with the reality that my marriage was hanging by a thread. During the first few days apart, I experienced a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion, and moments of relief. I thought I would feel liberated by taking that step back, but instead, I felt isolated and lost. The quietness of the spare bedroom echoed my thoughts, leaving me with too much time to reflect. I spent hours staring at the ceiling, replaying our arguments, and analyzing every moment leading up to her betrayal. I spent my days at work where I was surrounded by colleagues who had no idea of the storm brewing in my personal life. Every smile felt forced, every laugh was hollow. I would catch glimpses of couples in the office, those who were in love or at least pretending to be, and it made my heart ache. Was it possible to salvage my marriage, or was this the end of a chapter I wasn't ready to close? As the week dragged on, Sarah reached out multiple times. She texted me, calling me to talk, but I found it difficult to respond. Each time her name popped up on my phone, a wave of anxiety washed over me. I wasn't ready to face her yet. I needed distance to figure out what I truly wanted. Then, on the Friday evening that marked a week since our separation, I decided I could no longer avoid the inevitable. I owed it to both of us to talk. I texted Sarah, suggesting we meet at a nearby cafe. I wanted to do this in public, where the weight of our emotions could be somewhat diffused. When I arrived at the cafe, I felt a mix of nerves and determination. I spotted Sarah at a corner table, her eyes scanning the room until they locked onto mine. She looked different, more subdued, her usual bravado replaced by a vulnerable expression. I could see the shadows under her eyes, evidence of sleepless nights and worry. Despite everything, a part of me felt a pang of sympathy. "Hey," I said as I took a seat across from her. "Hey," she replied, her voice soft. The tension was palpable, and for a moment neither of us knew how to start. Finally, I broke the silence. "I've been thinking a lot about us, about everything that's happened." She nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I've been doing the same. I can't express how sorry I am, Jake. I messed up. I never wanted to hurt you." "I know you didn't intend to hurt me, but you did," I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I need to understand why this happened. Was I not enough for you?" "I was stupid," she said, her voice cracking. "I let my insecurities get the best of me. I thought I needed someone else to fill the void, to make me feel better about myself. But I realize now that I was wrong. I pushed you away, and I hate myself for that." It was difficult to listen without feeling a swell of anger. "But you didn't just push me away, you betrayed me." "I know," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "And I can't take it back. I don't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want to try to make this right. I love you, Jake. I never stopped loving you." In that moment, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild what we had lost. But the walls she had built around herself were strong, and I was hesitant to let her back in without assurance of her commitment to change. "I need time to think, Sarah," I said, my voice steady but firm. "I can't just pretend everything is okay. Trust takes time to rebuild, and right now it feels broken." "I understand," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. "I'll do whatever it takes. I'll go to counseling. I'll talk to you every day if that's what it takes. I just don't want to lose you." The sincerity in her voice stirred something deep within me. I wanted to believe her, but I also knew I couldn't be swayed by desperation. Let's take it one step at a time. I can't promise anything, but I'm willing to try to work through this. If you're truly committed to changing, then we might have a chance. The relief in her expression was palpable, and for a moment I felt the weight of the world lift off my shoulders. It wouldn't be easy, but we were both willing to put in the effort. We spent the next hour talking, discussing our feelings, our regrets, and what we both wanted moving forward. It was raw and emotional, but it was also cathartic. I could see the flicker of determination in her eyes, the desire to repair what had been broken. As we left the cafe, I felt a cautious optimism. We had a long road ahead, filled with challenges and uncertainties, but there was a glimmer of hope. I knew it wouldn't happen overnight, but if we were both committed to healing, maybe, just maybe, we could rebuild our relationship. That night, as I lay in bed, I reflected on our conversation. The journey ahead would be riddled with hurdles, but I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I was ready to confront the pain, to face the truth, and to reclaim my marriage. Whatever it took, I was determined to see this through. Little did I know, the path to reconciliation would require not just effort but a deeper understanding of ourselves and each other. The real challenge was just beginning. In the weeks that followed our heartfelt conversation at the cafe, things began to change, albeit slowly. Sarah and I decided to pursue couples counseling, a step I never thought I'd take. It felt almost surreal to be sitting in a therapist's office, discussing our issues out loud as if we were some kind of case study. But it also felt necessary. We needed a neutral ground to open up without the weight of resentment hanging over us. The first few sessions were challenging. I had my walls up, and although I was willing to try, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. Sarah was equally vulnerable, breaking down as she talked about her insecurities and the reasons behind her actions. It was hard to listen without feeling the anger bubbling up inside me, but I kept reminding myself that this was a part of the process. One evening during a session, the therapist asked us to express our feelings about the affair openly. "How did it make you feel, Jake?" she prompted. I took a deep breath, trying to encapsulate the whirlwind of emotions I had experienced. It felt like my world was shattering. I trusted her and she completely disregarded that trust. It made me question my worth. Was I not enough for her? Did I fail as a husband? Sarah's eyes flooded with tears. "You weren't any of those things, Jake. I was lost and I let my insecurities dictate my actions. I never wanted to hurt you. I'm so sorry." Hearing her say that, seeing her genuine remorse, stirred something inside me. It was the first time I felt like maybe she really understood the gravity of her actions. But the journey was far from over, and I had to remind myself that words were just words. I needed to see actions that matched those words. As we continued to attend counseling sessions, I noticed gradual changes in Sarah. She was more attentive, more willing to communicate openly about her feelings and fears. It felt like she was trying to peel back the layers of her own insecurities, which was a step in the right direction. One evening after a session, we went out for dinner, something we hadn't done in ages. The atmosphere felt lighter, and for the first time in a long while, we shared genuine laughter over a meal. It felt nice, almost like a glimpse of what we used to be. But there was still an elephant in the room, the affair, and I knew we had to face it head on. "Jake," Sarah began, her voice serious, "I want to talk about Mike." My heart raced. I had been avoiding that conversation, not wanting to reopen old wounds, but I also knew we needed to address it. "Okay," I replied cautiously. I never wanted him. I thought that attention would fill the void I felt, but it didn't. I realize now that it only caused more pain, and I hate that I put you through that. I want you to know that I ended it completely. There's nothing between us anymore, I promise. I could see the sincerity in her eyes, but it didn't erase the hurt I felt. "I believe you, but I need time to process it all. I can't pretend that the past didn't happen, and I can't forget it either. It's going to take time for me to heal." "I understand," she said softly. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes to show you that I'm committed to us. I'll work on myself, Jake. I want to be better for us, for you." As weeks dragged into months, we both put in effort. I focused on my emotional healing while Sarah worked on herself, attending therapy on her own. It was a strange dance between hope and skepticism. Some days were better than others. There were moments of joy and laughter, but also moments of doubt and insecurity. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, I felt a surge of affection for her. I reached for her hand, intertwining our fingers. "I know we've both made mistakes, but I want to believe in us again," I said, looking into her eyes. "It's going to take time, but I want to try." "I want that too," she replied, squeezing my hand tightly. "Thank you for being willing to give me another chance." That small moment felt monumental. It was a reminder that we were both working toward rebuilding our relationship. But just as I began to feel hopeful, a shadow crept back in. I couldn't shake the fear that something would trigger old wounds. The thought of her turning back to her old habits haunted me. One night while cleaning out the garage, I stumbled upon an old box of Sarah's things, filled with letters and photos from her college years. As I rummaged through it, I found an old journal, and curiosity got the best of me. Flipping through the pages, I found entries discussing her feelings of loneliness and inadequacy throughout her life. It struck me how deeply ingrained her insecurities were, how they had shaped her choices. That's when it hit me. Her affair wasn't just a single act of betrayal. It was a culmination of unresolved issues that had festered over time. I realized that if we wanted to move forward, we needed to address the root of her insecurities together. The next day, I brought it up during our counseling session. "I found something in the garage. I think we need to talk about your past, about what you've been carrying with you. It might help us understand each other better." Over the following weeks, we dove deeper into her past, peeling back the layers of her insecurities and fears. It was a painful but necessary process. We began to open up about our childhoods, our experiences with love and trust, and how those shaped our understanding of each other. The more we shared, the more connected we felt. But just as we began to find our footing, something unexpected happened. I received a text one evening from an unknown number. My heart sank as I opened it, only to see a picture of Sarah and Mike together, taken recently. It felt like a knife piercing through the fragile foundation we had been building. "Jake, I need to explain," Sarah said later that night, her face pale as she sat across from me. "I didn't know he was here, I swear. But in that moment I felt the ground shift beneath me once more. Could I trust her again? Would I be able to navigate this new hurdle, or would it send me spiraling back into the abyss of despair? The emotional journey wasn't over yet, and I had to confront the reality that my path to healing was fraught with unexpected challenges. I was left wondering if we could truly rebuild, or if I was just setting myself up for another round of heartbreak. As I stared at the text from that unknown number, a flood of emotions rushed over me. Anger, betrayal, confusion, it all crashed down like a tidal wave. "Why?" was the only word that escaped my lips as I looked at Sarah. "Why is this happening again?" "I don't know," she exclaimed, her voice shaking. "I thought it was over. I didn't know he was in town. Please, Jake, you have to believe me." Her panic was evident, and a small part of me wanted to believe her, but the other part screamed for me to protect myself. "It's been a struggle, hasn't it?" I said, my own voice trembling with disbelief. "You promised me you were done with him. This feels like a cruel joke, Sarah. I swear it's not what you think. He must have seen me and decided to send you that," she pleaded, her eyes wide with fear. "Then why don't you just block him? Why didn't you tell me he was in town?" I shot back, fighting against the tears that threatened to spill. It felt like we were back at square one, and I didn't know if I had the strength to endure this pain again. "I didn't think it would matter. I thought I had put it behind me," she cried, her voice rising. "I thought we were building something again. I didn't want to bring this up and ruin what we were trying to fix." The irony of her statement didn't escape me. This had already shattered everything we were trying to rebuild. The trust was brittle, and now it felt like it had crumbled entirely. "You're right," I said, my heart heavy. "You should have told me, because if you really wanted to fix this, you wouldn't have kept anything from me. You would have been honest." As the weight of her actions sank in, I felt a deep sense of betrayal wash over me. This wasn't just about the text, it was about her inability to confront her past and communicate openly with me. I had given her a chance to prove herself, and now it felt like she was slipping away again. "I need space," I said, cutting through the thick tension in the air. "I can't do this right now, not again. I'm sorry, but I need to think." "Jake, please," she cried, desperation flooding her voice. "I don't want to lose you. I'm working on myself, I promise. I know I've messed up, but I love you so much." Those words felt meaningless to me in that moment. Love doesn't excuse betrayal. I felt the tears rolling down my cheeks as I turned away from her, struggling to maintain my composure. I thought we were on the right path, but now I wasn't sure if I was fighting for the right relationship anymore. I left the house and drove aimlessly, tears streaming down my face. I didn't know where to go or what to do. The familiar streets felt foreign, and the weight of uncertainty felt heavier than ever. I thought about all the memories we had created together, how we had shared dreams and laughter. But now, those memories were tainted by the betrayal that had become a recurring theme in our lives. Finally, I parked at a secluded spot by the lake, a place where I had often found solace and clarity in difficult times. I stepped out of the car and took a deep breath, letting the cool air wash over me. I needed to think clearly, to assess what I truly wanted moving forward. Sitting on a bench overlooking the water, I contemplated everything we had been through, the love, the pain, the fleeting moments of hope. I realized then that love alone wasn't enough to sustain a relationship. Trust, openness, and commitment were just as essential. I had to ask myself if I could truly trust Sarah again after everything that had transpired. As I sat there, I also recognized that I had to prioritize my own well-being. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about healing and finding a path that was right for me. I began to understand that sometimes letting go is the healthiest choice, even if it means walking away from someone you love. The next morning, I took a deep breath and called Sarah. "I think we need to talk," I said, my voice steady but heavy with emotion. When she arrived, I could see the worry etched on her face. "Jake, I'm so sorry. I'll do anything." "Stop," I interrupted gently. "This isn't about you promising to change. It's about what I need right now." She looked confused, and I felt my heart ache for her. "I need to let you go," I finally said, my voice breaking. "I can't keep allowing this cycle of pain to continue. I need to focus on myself and figure out who I am without you." Her expression changed to one of disbelief and sadness. "You don't mean that," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. "I do," I replied, feeling a sense of clarity. "You're not a bad person, Sarah, but this relationship has become toxic for both of us. I can't keep putting myself through this. I need to heal." Silence enveloped us, and in that moment I could see the realization dawning on her face. She understood that this was it. We were both losing ourselves in this cycle, and it was time to break free. As we stood there, the weight of our shared history hung in the air, heavy yet necessary. I watched as Sarah's tears fell silently, and I felt a mix of sadness and relief. I was finally taking control of my life, even if it meant saying goodbye to the woman I once loved so deeply. Walking away from her that day felt like a bittersweet victory. I knew it wouldn't be easy to move on, but I also understood that healing starts with making difficult choices. I was ready to embrace whatever lay ahead, with the hope that one day I could find a love that was built on trust and mutual respect, something I had lost but would never stop seeking. As I drove away, I felt the weight of the past begin to lift. It was time to reclaim my life, to find my own happiness, and most importantly, to learn to trust myself again. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was ready to face it head-on, one step at a time.